Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and yesterday the Philadelphia Eagles fell to the Arizona Cardinals 33-26. It was a close game throughout, but however, the Philadelphia Eagles were just not able to pull it off at the end. But one thing is for sure, Jalen Hurts is the guy in Philadelphia. Even in the loss yesterday, Hurts put up some great numbers and really has continued to prove his ability and his, I think, desire and determination and need to be the starting quarterback in Philadelphia. He threw for 338 yards, ran for 63 yards, and had 4 total touchdowns on the day. What I love most about Hurts is the way he spreads out the offense and utilizes all of the Eagles' receiving threats. With Carson Wentz, we weren't really able to see the connections being made in the passing game, and I think that there was some players that were favorited or not used as much when Carson Wentz was under center. However, Jalen Hurts was able to utilize so many different receivers. Yesterday, there were 6 receivers with over 30 yards on the day, and I love this kind of offense because we're utilizing and having so many different weapons in the passing game that it makes us that much more difficult to defend when you have so many different people capable of making plays and making the passes caught. So when our receivers are definitely coming up with the clutch catches and making Jalen Hurts look so much better, but it's also not even that they're making him look better, it's that he's placing the balls exactly where they need to be. He finished yesterday with a 104.6 pass rating. And I just think overall in the past 2 games, he has shown that, at least for now, he's the guy in Philadelphia, and he's the guy that should be under center, I think, for the rest of the season. Most likely that's how it's going to play out, really looking like we only have 2 games left. But I just think he brings a new dynamic and brings out the best in our players. I think these past 2 games, we've seen some of the best play from the Eagles receivers throughout the season. And the accurate passing definitely helps the receivers look better and make these passes. With Carson Wentz, he was so inaccurate so consistently that I'm not sure if it was, at times the receiver's fault or Carson's fault, or I just really don't think there was the connection there between Carson Wentz and the receivers, but it's definitely there with Jalen Hurts under center, and that just makes me so excited. So while we still lost yesterday, I think Jalen Hurts is really proving himself and is playing like a starter. I personally don't put that loss on Jalen Hurts. Where I get really frustrated offensively, and have been for a large part of the season, is with our offensive line. I don't think that the offensive line is the single reason we lost in the game yesterday. I mean, we still have to talk about our defense. There was some big issues on the defensive end, but I definitely think the offensive line played a pretty key role in our loss yesterday. Jalen Hurts was sacked 6 times for a loss of 33 yards and was consistently being rushed. There were some big blocks being missed. There wasn't enough time in the pocket, and I just don't think that the offensive line stepped up when we needed them to the most. With just about 2 minutes left in the game, we are down 7 points at the Arizona 16, totally capable of scoring and converting to make a touchdown. The Eagles' offensive line lets up back-to-back sacks on Jalen Hurts, 1 for a loss of 3 yards and 1 for a loss of 8. It's now 3rd and 21 and we can't convert. We go for it on 4th down and do not convert. But if the offensive line would have converted if the offensive line didn't give up those back-to-back sacks, would we have converted for a 1st down? Would we have scored a touchdown to tie it up, or maybe go for 2 points and go up 1 point? I don't know. Would that have essentially been almost the winning drive of the game? Who knows? But we'll never find out because the offensive line killed our potential to have that drive. And to me, that's very frustrating because it's a consistent point throughout the season. The sacks, the quarterback being rushed in the pocket. It was happening with Carson Wentz. It's happening with Jalen Hurts. Luckily, Jalen Hurts is a scrambler and can get out of the pocket when it breaks down and can make plays happen where you wouldn't normally see them be happening because of the lack of pocket and the lack of time. So thankfully we have Jalen Hurts who can make up for it at times, but I really do think that the Eagles' offensive line was what kind of killed that winning drive. I mean, we've been talking about the offensive line consistently this year. The Eagles have let up the most sacks in the NFL with 59 allowed sacks. This is a glaring issue, and as we wind down the season, playoff appearances are very low. Actually, we are now at a 6% chance of making the playoffs. So we just need to finish out the season protecting Jalen Hurts, keeping him healthy, and then look towards next season and make the proper adjustments. We'll have some guys getting healthy back in the starting rotation, but until then, I think right now it's the most important to make sure Jalen Hurts is staying protected and healthy in the pocket and not just, letting up big blocks being missed, and just protecting him overall and giving him the time to succeed and be a good quarterback. Defensively, I'm a little bit in the middle here. I don't think we played necessarily bad. Hear me out. Because the Cardinals players were coming up with some crazy plays in the pass game. DeAndre Hopkins finished with 9 receptions, 169 yards, and 1 touchdown. And Larry Fitzgerald finished with 3 receptions, 35 yards, and 1 touchdown as well. But in my opinion, I don't think either of these guys were being played poorly. They were coming up with some amazing, talented, downright good catches. And there were times where there was really nothing we could do against the plays that they were making. I think Kyler Murray did have a pretty sloppy game offensively overall, with an interception and 2 fumbles. Really should have been 3 fumbles, but whatever. They fumbled it the next play. But I do think that the Eagles defense was capitalizing on these mistakes and was getting the fumble recoveries and was, getting the ball back for the Eagles offense. I do wish the Eagles defensive line was a little bit more outstanding last night. I mean, they only had 1 sack on Kyler Murray. I would have liked to see more, but I do know this guy is a shifty runner. Fletcher Cox was suck and win because he was hustling after Kyler Murray. Didn't get too many sacks on the night, but he was hustling. I love to see hustle players. Cardinals finished with 103 yards in the rushing game, but the pass game is what really killed us defensively. The Cardinals finished with 432 yards in the passing game, and I know that I've acknowledged that there were some crazy catches being made by receivers on the Cardinals' end, but 432 yards is just way too many yards to be giving up in the passing game. We did have some big players missing from our secondary: Rodney McLeod, Darius Slay, and Avonte Maddox, all out this week with injuries, but it is still unacceptable to be giving up that many yards. 432, way too high. That's something big to be focusing on next week and heading into the offseason as well. So before I get into how the rest of the NFC East did this weekend, I want to quickly talk about Carson Wentz and the reports of him being unhappy and does not want to be the backup next year. He would rather leave Philadelphia. So let's talk about this a little bit. I mean, it's understandable to not be happy you got benched. That's not something that's exciting. That's not something that's a very happy thing in general. But I do think it's personally still way too early to be making major decisions about next year's starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. I love Jalen Hurts, love him, love watching him play, but I do believe that a lot can happen in the offseason. I think a lot can be improved. I think a lot can be adjusted. And I don't think Carson Wentz is by any means out of the running to be the starting quarterback next year. I hope he doesn't take the easy way out and just want to be traded as opposed to working hard for his spot next year. I also think it's his best option, personally, to work hard to try to earn his starting spot back, because I'm not too confident about who's picking up his big contract. If a team picked up Carson Wentz's contract after this season, they would essentially be taking on a $98.4 million contract for 4 years. And at the same time, I don't know if the Eagles can afford to trade him, because they would need to give Wentz $33.8 million in guaranteed dead money before they can trade him. So I think it's too expensive on, our end and whoever wants him on the receiving ends. I just think that these are numbers that are way too high, and I don't think, especially after the way Carson has played this season, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a lot of teams that he could be utilized, and I do think maybe a change of scenery wouldn't be horrible for Carson Wentz, but I also do think, like I said, it's a little too early to be making these assumptions and decisions, because I still think that the starting spot for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2021 season is still up in the air and open. So, the numbers for trading Carson Wentz are much more doable after next season. But like I said, there's still so much time for Carson to earn his spot back. And I don't want to sound like I'm hopping back on the Carson Wentz train. I love Jalen Hurts, but I do think that it's only been 2 games, and we still need to see more development from Jalen Hurts. Let's not be naive to the fact that he's had 2 amazing games. I would love to see more, and I do think that there are more great things to come from Jalen Hurts, but I still think that this offseason is going to be a very focused in offseason, and like I said, I think a lot can happen in the offseason. So now let's move on to see how the rest of the NFC East did this weekend. Last night, the Giants fell to the Cleveland Browns 20-6 to put their overall record at 6-8, a record that is tied with the Washington football team, who also lost yesterday to the Seattle Seahawks 20-15, where Dwayne Haskins threw for 295 yards and 1 touchdown. The Cowboys defeated the 49ers 41-33 in a close game that was essentially taken away once Anthony Brown picked off Nick Mullins and the Cowboys offense was able to convert and score. So now headed to next week, the Philadelphia Eagles set their attention to the Washington football team, and I'm very excited to see Jalen Hurts under center again. I just think he is so exciting to watch. But I also do need some better protection by the offensive line, especially against the Washington's monster defensive line. They need to protect Hurts this weekend. That's a big thing to be watching. I really need to see the offensive line key in and make the plays when we need the plays most. Defensively, we should have Darius Slay back in the secondary this weekend, but overall, the secondary needs to clean up their ability to defend against the passing game. So that's going to do it for today. I do have one small announcement before we end this podcast. Next week, my podcast will be audio only. I will be away from the studio for the holidays, so I'll be putting out audio only content that is and always is available on SoundCloud. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. I really appreciate it. I'm That Philly Sports Girl, and we'll see you next week.